Hi everybody, you're here watching the video called 6 Steps to Success. And there's all these questions that come up when someone starts a new instrument for the student as well as the families. What do they need to learn? How can they do that? Where do they go for information? And guess what? That all starts here on this website as well as all these videos we have available, but more importantly in the classroom or the music room with your music teacher. So make sure you're listening to the teacher, and guess what? They're going to be telling you one thing, and guess what it is? Your child's success is 99% predictable, good or bad. It's predictable whether they're going to be successful, or predictable whether they're not going to be successful. And what does that mean? That if you follow these 6 steps and your child follows these 6 steps and does these 6 steps things or these 6 things, guess what? There's a 99% chance they're going to do really well. If they choose not to follow these, or they, well, I don't know if I feel like doing that, that seems weird, I don't think I need to do that, then there's a 99% chance that they're not going to be successful on an instrument. So, good news, bad news, it's in your court. We're here to help you, and this video is here to help you. And then don't forget all the other stuff that's there, but most importantly, listen to the teacher, talk to the teacher if you have any questions, any problems, and guess what? You're going to be doing really well. We look forward to hearing you play in the future, so enjoy this video and start playing every day. So we're going to go through this today with Mr. Scholl. How are you doing, Mr. Scholl?
Doing very well.
All right.
Looking forward to this.
So Mr. Scholl plays clarinet, has been doing it a long time, so this is going to be a lot of fun. First thing you notice, it says, before you begin, always wash your hands and rinse out your mouth. There's a lot of reasons for this, but always do that, and make sure you keep your hands clean when you're touching your instrument. And then anything that's in your mouth is going to be inside your instrument, and that can be really gross and nasty, so make sure you rinse that out multiple times. Do that every time before you play. You'll be doing okay. Number 1, first thing we got to do is make a good quality sound on your mouthpiece. This is so important. Mr. Scholl, take it away. Show us what we need to do to put that mouthpiece together.
All right, well, first thing we want to do is get our reed and put it just enough in our mouth that we get the top part wet. We don't want to put the whole thing in there. Once both sides are wet, you're going to want to put the flat part of the reed on the flat part of the mouthpiece. Now you want to make it so that there's just a sliver of black showing. You don't want to be too far up or too far down. And once you've done this a bunch of times, it's going to get easier every time. So once you have just the right amount of black, can they see that?
Yeah, and I always tell kids, it's kind of like just making sure they're the same height. If the tops are roughly the same height, you're going to be in a really good situation there, really close.
Right. Now the ligature I'm using is probably going to be different from yours. The main key is that you want to make sure these round circles on your keys are facing the right side of the mouthpiece. So for me, the screws are actually going to be in front. For you guys, most of them are going to be behind the reed. So you want the ligature just below, they call this the beak here, I believe. And once you get the ligature where you want it, go ahead and tighten the screws, not as tight as possible, but snug enough that it's not going anywhere. Once you've done that, you're ready to put the barrel on. Now here, we're going to talk about this later when we're putting the whole instrument together, but you always want to twist together. And then when you take it apart, you're going to do the same thing. You don't want to do any of this or shoving it on there. Tiny twists, pushing together at the same time.
Now what happens if it's really, really tight and that cork is dry? What should we do?
In that event, you're going to want to use cork grease.
There's a link to watch a video on the very detailed taking care of your instrument and putting it together. Let's just skip that. Let's just go right into once you have your mouthpiece done.
Okay. Once you have your mouthpiece, reed, ligature, and barrel assembled, you're ready to start making noise on this thing. Now, this is one of my favorite things to do at the beginning of band when I always ask the kids, okay, I want you to practice at home with just the barrel and the mouthpiece at first. You get to annoy your siblings and everything, maybe make your dog start howling. It's awesome, it's fun. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is with your bottom lip, just barely put it over your bottom teeth. You don't want to go all the way in there. Okay, just barely enough so that this part of your lip, the dark part of your lip, just goes right there on the bottom teeth.
Well, what's the purpose of that?
The reason why is to kind of hold your mouthpiece in place, and it's going to help you make the best sound you can.
Well, and it also protects the reed from your teeth, right?
Yes.
So your bottom teeth are not hitting that reed.
And also this lip here is a bit tougher than the gum part here, and that kind of saves you from cutting up your mouth with your teeth as well.
Nice.
So we're going to go ahead and set that there. And your top teeth are going to want to go right here. You're going to see where I put my top teeth on there. That's where you want it. And then once you've done that, wrap your lips around and you're ready to make a sound on it. Let's go ahead and do that together.
Now, do the corners of your mouth go in or out? What do we do with the corners of our mouth?
I would say go ahead and wrap them around, and they bring your corners back just a bit. And if you say kind of a M, make that kind of sound, that's going to put your lips where you want them.
Yeah, we always talk about no grandma kisses. We just don't want to be making our lips go out like we're about to kiss grandma. So keep those corners back some.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're doing everything correctly, this is the sound you're going to want to make. Okay, now look what happens if I put too much mouthpiece in my mouth and I do that. Okay, it's not so pretty sounding, is it?
You know you're doing it wrong if it sounds like that.
Yes. Okay, you just want to, it's still not the prettiest sound, but you do want it to be strong and clear and consistent. That's probably not the best words to use, but...
Yeah, but that big loud sound is important because it's going to give us a good quality sound. We don't want a wimpy sound. What does it sound like when we put like too much bottom lip in?
I can't even do it consistently.
We want a solid, straight sound, really, really strong, and it's going to sound loud. When you put your instrument together, it won't be that loud though.
So top teeth, bottom lip, firm corners, plenty of air, just the right amount of mouthpiece, you're set.
Great. Let's move on to number 2. Assembling the instrument seems really tricky on a clarinet because there's 5 pieces. Good grief. How do we figure this out?
Well, first thing you want to do is when you're putting this together, it's always easiest to go the bottom up. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the case.
And I will point out while he's doing that and grabbing some of his pieces there, do be careful with that reed, putting it on and off, and just touching it on the corner or on the tip of it could crack that reed. And they're not too expensive, but guess what? You break one every day, it turns into a lot of money. At the beginning of your playing, it should last about a month each.
If you're practicing every week and you have a few reeds and you're interchanging them, they'll last about a month. If you're using one reed all the time and you're not careful with it, it's not going to last anywhere near as long as that.
So you suggest actually rotating every day on a different reed?
Yes.
So you're getting it a day off, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I have 4 reeds that I have in here that I've been interchanging, and they do last quite a bit longer when you do that.
Okay.
Okay. So now I have the bottom part of the clarinet. This is called the bell, and this is the lower joint. Now, if you grip just about here where the thumb rest is, you kind of wrap around. Be very careful not to grip too tightly. And you're just going to want to gently twist together like we did with the barrel and the mouthpiece earlier.
And if it's really difficult, then that's what that cork grease is for. And again, go watch that other video to see details on that.
Yes, and if you haven't used cork grease before, you're not entirely sure what to do even after the video, ask your teacher. We'll be happy to help you with that.
Absolutely. Teacher is the first place to get all your information. This is just supplementary to help you out.
Okay, now the next part we put together, this is the upper joint. Now this is very, very important. You'll notice that when I press a certain key, this one here, there's another key that comes up. We call this the bridge key.
Okay, show which key you're actually pressing.
This is actually the D key here.
It's the lowest one closest to that.
Right. There's like a tiny little hole without a key above it. There's this one right above it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my left thumb to press down on that key. That way I lift up the bridge key, and then you just gently twist together. And once you have all these round keys lined up, that's how you know you have it where you want it.
Yeah, another way to look at it is make sure that bridge key is lined up, because if the bridge key is lined up, then both of them will be lined up correctly.
And now this part we already have together. Just gently twist on. And you're going to want this reed to be in line with this long key in the back. So you should have your thumb rest, long key, reed.
One thing I always like to point out is that there's 5 pieces, but they only go together one way. There's no wrong way to put it together. If you start putting something together and it doesn't fit well, stop and then try a different end, try a different piece. It only goes together one way.
I would say once you've done this like 5 times, it's going to be second nature from that point onward.
Super easy.
Yeah.
Great. So, number 1, we made a good quality sound on our mouthpiece. Guess what? Without a good quality sound, your instrument's not going to sound good. Then we put our instrument together, and now let's take a look at playing and resting position.
Okay. Now, first thing I want to talk about is where you're putting your hands when you're playing your clarinet. Your right hand is always going to be on the bottom. Now, I'm putting my thumb just underneath this thumb rest. You'll notice my nails here. A lot of beginning students want to put it way out here. Avoid doing that. You're going to be really grateful later when you start using both your hands when you have your thumb in the right place.
Yeah, let's just make that point. Almost everything we tell students to do is because it's going to make it easier in the future. Even though it may work other ways right now, later on it'll be a really big problem if they do that.
Absolutely, and your teachers are going to be picky about that. So make sure you are as well. You want just your thumbnail just barely underneath the thumb rest. That's with your right hand. Your left hand, your thumb's going to go right here on this key, right below the long key. And you have another round key in front. Go ahead and put your first finger there. Here's the D key with the bridge key. That's where our second finger goes. And there's an open hole. That's where your third. So you want, and then these 3 keys here, you just want them nearby. Now, what I'm saying, you don't want to press them down all the time, but just keep your fingers nearby so that when you're ready to play them, you have easy access to it.
Yeah, I always like to say that's your home positions. You're actually not going to push those keys down. They're just there ready for that key.
Right.
And there's 6 holes on the front, and you have 3 on your left hand that cover it and 3 on your right that cover. And I often just use from the top down, that's finger 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 as a way of describing which finger to be using. And then your right thumb is just helping hold the instrument. Your left thumb is sometimes going to cover that back hole, sometimes not.
Okay. And when you are ready to play, you want to make sure you're sitting close to the edge of your seat. You want to have plenty of space between your back and the back of the chair. You want to sit up tall, make sure your hand's in the home position, and then have your mouthpiece where we talked about earlier. This is your playing position.
Yeah, so did you notice whenever he did that, he actually sat up taller as he started to play because he's actually pushing that instrument and pushing up on the top teeth. It's always funny to me, kids who get a great quality sound on their mouthpiece, put it together and then forget everything, and they poof their cheeks out, and they got grandma kisses, and they slump over, and they got their thumb way underneath, and they forget everything that we worked on, and it's real important to develop this. We'll be talking more about muscle memory in a little bit, but doing it correctly now will make you do it correctly for a lifetime.
And everything's hard until it's easy, right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Okay. All right, and then when you're at a rest position, you get to go ahead and relax in the back of your chair and then just hold your clarinet this way so that your reed is facing to the left of where you're sitting.
Yeah, I always like to point out that I kind of roll my hands down so that reed is coming toward the front of my left knee. And just when you turn sideways, you could be hitting your neighbor or bumping into their instrument as well. So you want to be protecting that reed. Again, it just costs money, so you want to make sure you're taking care of that no matter what. So now go to playing position there, Mr. Scholl. You're in resting position, sitting up, top in. I always like to point out the chin stays up and the instrument goes down. Your knees don't hold it, but it goes down to your knees. And it's real easy for kids to want to put their chin down and play it like a trumpet. It's not a trumpet. Chin stays up, instrument goes down.
And I also notice some students either want to hold their elbows to the sides or they want to put them way up here. You want to just have an angle going to the corners.
Yeah, in fact, I remember my teacher talking about it. Everything we're doing is we're trying to do it in the most comfortable way because as a musician, you end up playing for hours at a time. And so you don't want to do anything that causes muscles to be uncomfortable. You want to do everything as natural as possible. All right, so we got playing, we did good quality sound, we learned to assemble our instrument, our playing and resting position, which we don't want to forget all we did in step 1 and 2. And then now we're looking at step 4. And this is kind of tricky, I think, because it's so simple for a clarinet to play their first 3 notes so that they get it's real easy to get sloppy and lazy. And then later on when we do something that's a little trickier, then it causes problems. But go ahead and show us those first 3 notes. They're on page 6. Just show real quick which hand we're doing what.
So I'm looking at number 1 here. If you're looking at the worksheet, where we were nice and we gave you the note name, okay, that's actually going to be our E thumb 1. You're pressing your thumb up right below this long key here and your first finger down. Now when pressing the keys, you want to be firm enough that you get these tiny little circles on your thumb and your finger. Are they able to see that?
Kind of.
Okay. Well, if you look close enough at your fingers, you're going to see a round circle. It kind of leaves an indentation from the keys. And if you aren't covering that circle all the way, you're not going to get a good quality sound out. So I'm going to go ahead and play this E thumb 1.
And I like to point out, for most of these kids, they will have played recorder before.
Right.
And so the good part is it's so similar to that, because I always taught, look for the circle indentations on your fingers on the recorder to make sure you're covering those holes and getting a good sound on that. And then we're basically doing the same fingers with just different names. From the B, A, G from last year is going to be E, D, C from this year.
Right. So let's go ahead and play an E thumb 1. First, we want to make sure we have a good solid playing position, sitting up tall, forward in your chair, feet flat on the ground. Got our thumb where we want it. We have E thumb 1 ready to go. Top teeth, bottom lip, corners back, firm air. Here we go.
Keep your chin up, keep your instrument down.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember how loud that it was without the instrument, but now it's not near that loud. But you got to make that same quality air sound to get this really good sound on the clarinet.
Right.
And
And
do the honking thing. What does it sound like when you play it bad?
oh boy.
If you put it too far in your mouth. Yeah, poof in the cheeks, lips too far out, not controlling the reed. You got to bite that reed to keep it under control. All that stuff just makes it sound real funky. You're looking for a really solid, straight sound.
Yeah. So make the effort to do it correctly, because being lazy and doing it wrong actually makes it a lot harder.
Absolutely. Let's real quickly. Did we show all 3 of those notes right? E, D, C.
We just did E right now.
Did we show them how to play the D and the C?
Well, we have E thumb 1. No, we didn't say specifically.
Okay, go ahead and do that real quick and just cover those real quick.
Mm-hmm. And while we're doing this, I just want to show you how to do the other notes that you have in this September page. So we already went through E thumb 1. Your next note, D thumb 1, 2, you just add your second finger, and then same thing, sitting up straight, chin up, instrument down, top teeth, bottom lip, corners back.
Good, so remember that good quality sound, you're focusing just on the mouth, doing that thing. Get your fingers set and then focus on your mouth, doing it the correct way to get that good sound.
All right, and then on number 4 on our September page, that's our C, just thumb 1, 2. Now we're putting our third finger down on the hole without a key on it.
What about the bottom fingers? What are they doing?
The bottom fingers, really what you need to focus the most on right now is that your thumb's in the right spot. And your 3 fingers, go ahead and keep them nearby these keys, but don't press them. A lot of students want to do this or this or this. Just try and do your best to keep them near these 3 keys.
But don't plug the holes.
Right. I would say keep it nearby, just not way out into outer space.
There you go.
Okay. And here's our C, thumb 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and the one thing that's tricky for trumpets and clarinets both is in 4th grade, they should have learned how to read treble clef, but guess what? Now we're going below the treble clef. So your E is the bottom one. Every good boy does fine. That's easy. But then you have a space below that, and that's a D. You're just going to have to memorize that for right now. And then the C is one spot below that, and there's a little line through it. We call it a ledger line, and that's a C. So you got to learn how to read those 3 notes at the beginning. Everything else after that is going to be up in the staff for a while. But those first 2 are 2 of the first 3 are actually below the staff, so it's a little weird. Your teacher will help you with that, and we actually have another video about note reading if you need help with that.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to number 5, tonguing. Tonguing is, other than getting that good quality sound, tonguing to me is what makes someone sound like a good musician versus a beginner. So it's a big, big, big thing to learn. Why don't you go ahead and go through that a little bit, Mr. Scholl?
Now, when I introduce tonguing, I like to just play. Hold on, let me think about how I want to say this.
Well, while you're thinking about it, let me just go ahead and say something real quick.
Yeah.
Go ahead and look at the notes that we have number 5. you're going to eventually work up where you just tongue, just play any note you want to, and just T, 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 or through, whatever you're doing to make the sound. But then also notice that it says, don't worry about this until we get to song number 15. We're not going to be tonguing on the first week or two. This is going to take several weeks to get to this point. It's just one of the key things that you're going to need to learn, okay? So don't freak out. The first 1, 2, 3, and 4 we're doing immediately. We're going to work really hard on that. 5 is going to be something that's going to take us a while to get to. So don't freak out on this one. This is just a quick introduction to this, and then your teacher will work with you more on that.
Right. And once you've passed your September test, all your October, November, December, that's when we're really going to start focusing the most on tonguing. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how I expect clarinet players to do this.
You know, for me, when I talk about tonguing with the clarinet, it's the same thing as everybody else. The fact is, you got to do 2 things at once, and that's what makes it difficult. One, you're going to actually have to keep blowing while your tongue does something, and that's very unnatural. Your body, whenever you move that tongue, you're going to want to stop the air, like toot, 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 toot. And that's not what we want to do at this point. So we actually have to kind of think, while I'm doing that T sound, I'm going to actually have to keep blowing at the exact same time. And that is really weird for your body. Once you get it, it's really easy. So it's going to take you about a week or so to get good at this. If you do this and you feel like you're swallowing your tongue, you're probably doing it right. Your tongue does not like to move in this way, and it's a very fancy muscle. So it's going to take a while to train it to do this, and then it's going to be very easy to do. So, Mr. Scholl, what do you do with this? Again, I always talk about making the shortest possible T. We don't want to envelop and just lick the reed, but we need to do that while we blow at the same time.
Well, one of the main differences between tonguing on a clarinet as opposed to a trumpet or a flute is that while they use their tongue on the roof of their mouth, we use it literally on the reed. So we do want to make a short T sound, and we do that by making our tongue hit right about here on the reed. Sometimes clarinet players want to do this in the beginning, go at the very tip, or they'll go way down here somewhere. No, right here is where you want to do that. So one thing I like to do is kind of listen to students try tonguing without playing any notes necessarily. So you're going to hear me blow air through my instrument while using my tongue. Here's what that sounds like.
And what's the purpose of the tongue touching the reed?
To do that, you're controlling your air better, and you're able to make a better sound. And the other thing
what happens actually when your tongue touches the reed? What happens?
Instead of stopping the air with our lungs, we're using our tongue to separate the notes.
Yeah, that's right. At the beginning, we kind of start with a hua, we just start with air. And now we're going to start using a T to start every note. And so this is a tricky thing to learn.
Mm-hmm. So once you're comfortable using your tongue using just air, let's go ahead and try doing that with an E thumb 1. So don't worry about reading at music right now. All you're focusing on is making the E thumb 1 sound and then tonguing it 4 times. If you do it correctly, you should hear your tongue starting each note, and then once the tongue touches the reed again, it kind of cuts it off. Notice my air didn't stop the whole time we did that.
Show a bad example of stopping the air in between the notes.
Mm-hmm. So if I were to not use my tongue to stop the notes, and instead I just cut off the air, this is what it sounds like.
So he's got the T thing going on, but we got to keep the air blowing all the way through, and you got to do the T while you're doing it. It's actually trickier to explain than it is to actually do.
Right.
It's one of those things you just got to do, and then let your teacher listen to it, and then help you and correct it. It doesn't take that long.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and play 4 quarter notes without using my tongue, and I want you to listen for a difference in sound. So that was me without using my tongue. Here I am using my tongue.
Yeah, down. One of the big things is your tongue, because it is a muscle, it does get tired. And so if you did 10 or 15 or 20 T's in a row, they're not going to sound the same because your muscle's not used to doing it consistently. And so that's what we're going to work on, is getting where all the T's sound the same. And that's really difficult, but it just makes it sound so much better.
And you're going to be very grateful in the long run, because as you're playing more complicated music at faster speeds, you do need to be able to tongue consistently so that you can play that at a higher level. It's just so much harder to do without this technique, so we're really, really going to push that hard.
Well, and as an example, play just the first two measures of Mary Had a Little Lamb without the tongue and then with the tongue, so they can hear. It just makes everybody sound like a musician instead of a beginner.
Right. So here it is without the tongue. And I'm noticing I'm having to use my air a whole lot more without using my tongue, and you get tired quicker that way as well. So here it is while using tonguing. Remember, we're hitting right here. All right.
And even though it's a simple song, it just sounds like music so much better when you learn to tongue. So that's a big deal we're going to learn, but especially before our first concert, because everybody's really impressed when we make the sound like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's quick review, make a good quality sound on a mouthpiece. We never forget about that. That's super important. Learning to assemble and put your instrument together and take it apart, disassemble, super important, particularly protecting that reed. Playing in resting position, always important. And then our first three notes, that's just something we're going to have to learn. Tonguing, it's going to take us a little while, and we're not going to do it for a little bit, but that's just going to be a big trick that we're going to learn to make it sound better. And then really important, number 6, anything that you learn that involves skill, that includes sports or dance or martial arts, anything that you guys are into, it takes what we call muscle memory, and the only way to get muscle memory is by repetition. So this is I was telling a video when I did the trumpet video, and I was saying I always laugh at beginning students, because we'll be talking and they'll say something about, I practiced and I still can't play it, it's hard. And I say, well, how many times did you play it? They say 4, and I laugh at them, because I'm just going, it's just not enough times. You can't get good at soccer by playing 4 times. You can't get good at dance by dancing 4 times. You got to do it over and over and over to get that muscle memory. And so, Mr. Scholl, you when we put these together, you added something to these sheets that makes a really good way of looking at that. What's a good way to keep track of this?
I have found that students who pay close attention to what they're practicing get a lot more from it. And one way to do that is by adding tally marks for every time you practice something. So a good goal for right now would be to play 1, 2, 3, and 4 with this September page 5 times a day. And we have the practice video online to kind of help you with that. So, and if you do that and you time yourself, you're going to, I wonder how long that would actually be. It would be less than 20 minutes.
I was about to say, you can do the math on this. The point I always make to students is you've got to get past this idea of 2 times is a lot.
Right.
Or playing once a day is a lot. So one thing we always point out is if you play a song 25 times correctly, you are going to be able to play it very easily. And then if you play a song 50 times, it's just going to be super easy. They can do it in their sleep. And so tally marks is a great way to keep track of it. Most of these songs are somewhere between 10 and 12 seconds.
Right.
So if you do it 5 times, that's like 1 minute per song to do it 5 times there. So you're going to be looking at, if you did those 4 songs for 5 times, you're literally talking 5 minutes. It's just not that much time. But again, students, their initial thought process is just incorrect. And so it's a very important thing to get in their mind. I got to be looking at 25 times before I worry about whether I'm playing it good or not. Don't stress if it doesn't sound good after 3 times.
Right. And there's several ways you could go about this. I would say in the beginning, maybe do one song 5 times in a row and do your tally marks that way, and then move on to number 2, then 3, then 4. After you've done that, then you could say, you know what, I think I'm ready to play through this whole page. Just play through it 1 time, put a tally mark for every time you did it, and then just start over. And once you've done that 5 times, you're done for the day.
Yeah,
and you're practicing.
And it's one of the hard parts. Some students are better at it than others, but one of the trick things is to learn when is it time to move on and when is it time to go back and do something again. Some kids,
Yeah.
they play it wrong and they go, oh, that's great, and they move on. Other kids, they go, well, Mr. Schultz said play it 5 times. They play it 5 times, even though they mastered it after 2. That line number 1, you may play it really well after 2 times. That's okay. You can move on to the next thing. It takes a little time to do that. After about a couple of months, you should be pretty good at knowing whether or not you're doing good on that. And then we're actually going to teach you some practice tricks in the next homework page when we go back through that. The only thing I would add to this is whenever we talk about repetition, we're talking about correct repetition, not just repetition playing it wrong. Repetition doing the correct mouthpiece every time, doing the correct tongue every time, doing the correct notes every time, the correct rhythms every time. And getting good at that. When you play a song correctly and then you play it 25 times, you're going to be really good at it. In fact, frankly, the truth is, if you get where you can play it straight through one time, after probably 10 or 15 times, you're going to be good at it. But if you just start thinking 25 times, you're going to have a better chance of getting good at stuff rather than going, well, I played it 4 times and it should be better than this. And why is the teacher not passing my test because I practiced it 3 times? And you just need to do it more times. Repetition is all about muscle memory, and anything you're into besides music, it's the exact same thing, that muscle memory. Anything you want to add to this, Mr. Scholl?
No, I would just say as Mr. Hines was just saying, the key is repetition and practicing it correctly over and over. And if you keep track of how many times you do it, that's the key to success for becoming a oh my gosh, that's the key to success to becoming a good musician as opposed to a beginning musician.
Absolutely.
I really like the wording he used for that.
Well, and a thing I want to point out as well, in music, it's kind of interesting. We can make some guarantees. And so, there's another video on there that shows the details of how to put the instruments together. Don't forget that. Page 2 and 3 in your book, there's a bunch of information there. Your teacher's going to be giving you all kinds of information. But the key thing is, if you follow the instructions of your teacher, I guarantee you're going to be able to play an instrument. You're going to be able to play really well. And there's not a lot of guarantees in life, but we can guarantee you. One of the things I tell my students is, I have never, ever, ever, ever had a kid who followed all my instructions who didn't play really well. They may not be superstars, like going professional, but they can play songs and make everybody go, wow, you're really good if they follow the instructions. And the kids who didn't follow the instructions, those are the ones who don't do well or end up, I don't want to do this anymore because it's so hard. And it's not hard. They just didn't do it correctly. They didn't follow the steps. They didn't do these 6 things that we're talking about right here.
Yeah, and one thing that this requires is a lot of discipline. And a lot of students, they think that's a negative word. It's really not. That's I had a really great teacher who used to tell us this. The difference between motivation and discipline is motivation is that you would practice because you want to, and then if you're disciplined, you practice when you want to and even if you don't want to. So you are consistently getting better all the time, and it's just becoming routine. Yeah,
motivation sounds fun, but we're not always motivated. Some days we're tired, or there's something else interesting. And guess what? The kids who get good at dance and who get good at football and who get good at karate or some martial arts, they're the ones who go, I don't feel like going to class today, but I'm going to go to class today. I don't feel like going to practice today. I'm going to go practice anyway. And then those kids end up loving it because they can then play their instruments or they can play their sport for the rest of their lives.
And it's really rewarding when you put on a performance and everybody notices how much work you've done and how great you sound.
And it doesn't take long to impress people. Again, even by Christmas time, most people are able to play, and everybody around them is going to, wow, you're sounding really good. But guess what? If you can get these steps under control, you're going to be doing really good. I can guarantee you that. Make sure you follow your teacher's instructions. Ask them all the questions you want to. Don't forget the websites and all the other materials that we've prepared for you. All right. Have a great day.
Happy practicing.